Derek, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
How the last few months been?
Yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed the last few months because it's allowed me to see a lot of football, and I've been to Champions League games, I've been to League One games, I've been to League Two games, in England. But not only that, I've been in Scotland as well. Been able to take in a lot of football matches, and from my point of view, that helps, with not only looking at the past but looking at the future as well, to see what other teams are doing, to see what other managers are using from a formation point of view. So been really beneficial to have that few months at the start of the season to analyse other teams.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of managers find when they're out of work, they can take a step back more and look at the macro picture as opposed to being in the nitty-gritty. Have you sort of had a chance to kind of almost refine your methodology and take in different ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're a manager, it takes you a lot of time during the week to analyse other teams, and that's what I've done over my career. So I always look at the opposition, when we come up against them, and to see what their strengths and weaknesses are, to see what they're trying to do in the match. And that's when I'm going to these games now. What is the manager trying to implement his style of play, and how, if I was a manager, how would I break that down? How would I change things? Because that's what you've got to do in the touchline. You've got to quite quickly analyse the opposition and have a plan A, B and C in this respect. And there is a lot of younger coaches nowadays coming into the game and they've only got a plan A. They don't want to change. This is my way of doing things. And I think that that's wrong. I think that it's important as a manager. I've managed for 750 games now.
I thought you were going to say yes then.
Maybe it feels that way. And it's really important to understand different formations, different personnel, how are they going to fit in? And as a more experienced manager, that's what I look, at other managers in what systems of play they're playing in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me take it back to sort of your playing career and early life. What were the influences on you? Who were the influences on you that kind of made you want to become a manager?
Yeah, I was born in 1975, and in the 80s, I was brought up in a small village called Ellen. I was born in Glasgow, brought up in Ellen, which was a fantastic upbringing for me because it allowed me to go out and play football. And then I was brought up in the era of Aberdeen. Aberdeen was a fantastic city. It's the oil capital of Europe. And at that time, Aberdeen as a football team were one of the best in Europe. 1983, Aberdeen reached the European Cup Winners' Cup final. And in that progression, I was able to, my father worked for Aberdeen. He was a youth coach under Sir Alex Ferguson for 9 seasons. And he would take me into training. Teddy Scott, who was the kit man, who also the trainer at times, stayed in Ellen. And my dad would take him into Aberdeen, in the morning. And that upbringing was great for me because I was able to be, as a 7-year-old, watching how Sir Alex Ferguson, Archie Knox, the Aberdeen players went about things. And it is amazing how a child picks up traits, picks up images. And I've still got that to the day.
Wow.
And I think that, when parenthood, you talk about bringing up kids, etc., how your family look to, how your kid looks up to the family members or looks at other people. And that's what I did. And I looked at, Sir Alex and Archie as a youngster and the way they were competitive, playing head tennis, playing snooker. But not only that, Aberdeen was a great footballing city. Aberdeen playing against Ipswich Town,
Bobby Robson.
Manager, Terry Butcher playing in there, John Locke, Eric Gates, Paul Mariner. These are all great, European nights. Aberdeen playing at home to Bayern Munich. Aberdeen getting beat, winning at the time, winning 4-3 against Bayern Munich. Aberdeen's the only team in the last years to beat Real Madrid in the Cup Winners' Cup, the only team to win against Real Madrid in the cup final. And I was there, I was in Gothenburg as a 7-year-old watching them lift a European trophy.
Wow.
And that's my, upbringing into football, because my dad was the youth coach at Aberdeen at the time.
And you've spoken about moving into your playing career, learning a lot from the likes of Billy Davis. I mean, it's interesting because I think Billy Davis spoke about, when he did an interview maybe with the BBC, about being a little bit OCD. And I'm wondering if, you've taken after him a little bit to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, I worked with a lot of good managers. I was brought up at Aberdeen under Alex Smith, Jockey Scott, Drew Jarvie, who are all very, very good coaches. Their discipline, their work ethic helped me as a football player. At 16-year-old, I went to Aberdeen as a YTS, and these people taught me what discipline was. I remember playing for Aberdeen under 18s, and we played against Motherwell, and we drew 0-0. We had to report back to the stadium at 5:30 at night, because Aberdeen Football Club don't draw a match against Motherwell. That was the work ethic, that was the mentality they set out for us. And that's something that I've always, taken into my managerial career. And people can look at it in a different way. It's over the top. It's not. It's about striving to be the best. And they taught me that. And, that was a great upbringing. William Miller, who was a fantastic centre-half for Aberdeen in the 80s, then became manager. And he taught me a lot as well about being driven, about being able to understand the game. And then, going into my playing career, I had Terry Butcher, who was a fantastic person, but not only that, as a man manager as well. And, capped 86 times for England and playing for the likes of Rangers, etc. But as a person, you would never know that. The most down-to-earth human being you could ever wish to have, And I played under him, and then I managed against him, and that was great. Billy Davis was a very, very good coach, and I really enjoyed working under Billy. And as you say, he was very intense. He wanted the things to be done properly, and I've taken that into my managerial career as well. I had Eric Black as a manager.
Assistant Steve Bruce at Birmingham, wasn't he?
Exactly, and Eric, worked under Venglos at Celtic for many years as well. And over the years, Eric is still a very good friend to me. And the funny thing about it is that if you look back in my career, I had Eric Black, who is a manager. He scored the first goal in the European Cup Winners' Cup against Real Madrid. I played with John Hewitt, who scored the winner in 1983 in the Cup Winners' Cup. I then had Neil Cooper, who was my manager, and then became my assistant manager at Ross County. So that influence of that 1983 team was pivotal, not only in my playing career, but my managerial career as well.
So talk me through, when you did move from Ross County, you'd obviously had a bit of success there, but was it a difficult move to go from working in Scotland, which other than a brief period at Burnley, you'd only ever been based in Scotland in your career, to move up southwest of England at the time? Yeah,
I mean, I spent 3 years at Aberdeen, then I moved to Burnley as a 19-year-old, and I went down there and played under Jimmy Mullen, who was assistant manager to Ian Porterfield at Aberdeen before that, and that's how the link came. And I probably left Burnley too early. I thought that, as a lot of 19-year-olds do nowadays, think they're better than they are, and I can see that. I thought I should have been playing in the first team. I wasn't ready for the first team. I played one match in the first team. I was Scottish, making my English League debut in Wales. I came on for Warren Joyce, who's now...
Oh yes, good coach, isn't he? Yeah.
And, I came on for Warren, played in against Swansea, and, I played, with Ted McMinn, Adrian Heath. And Adrian Heath was very good, because when I was playing as a 19-year-old, he was playing in the reserves at the time, and he was able to teach me the game.
Yeah.
He would say to me, when the right back's got the ball, and I was playing centre midfield at the time, if the pass comes in from the right back, play it quite quickly round the corner, one touch, and I'll be there to receive it. And that helped me a lot, but that didn't just help me, it helped Adrian Heath as well, because Adrian wasn't the quickest player, But this movement made me look a good player. It helped his game as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's important when we talk about the system of play nowadays. You know, we talk about the academy system, and we don't have a lot of older players playing in it. We've changed to having one player over age. Nowadays, you know, when we have a...
Oh, yes, I know. So, like Paul McShane going to Manchester
Exactly.
United and
I
all that
think
kind
we
of thing.
can do more of that.
Sure.
Because older players coming down to the system can give that type of advice. A young player the same age can't give me the same advice.
Yeah.
And I think that we should have two or three actually, of these players helping these young players develop their game.
So on Plymouth Argyle then, I just wanted to, I mean, because they'd obviously reached the playoffs under John Sheridan the year before, lost in the semi-finals to Wycombe Wanderers. Wasn't a huge amount of money at Argyle despite a huge fan base, because they'd obviously been recovering from the financial issues of previous era. So how did you find managing Argyle?
Yeah, I mean, I'd been at Ross County for 3 years. I'd moved to Hibernian, then I went back to Ross County for 3 years. Won, 2 promotions with Ross County, getting them into the Scottish Cup final as a first division club, which was great. I then left Ross County, and Plymouth Argyle were playing Wycombe Wanderers in the semi-finals. You say John Sheridan was the manager. They did lose heavily in that semi-final to Wycombe, and I remember watching the game on the television. A week or so later, the opportunity came up to go for interview at Plymouth Argyle. And the only reason I watched that game on the television was with Stephen Craig, who scored for me in the semi-final against Celtic to take us to the Scottish Cup final, was playing for Wycombe Wanderers on the night.
Oh, right.
And that was the reason I was watching the game. But what I took from it was this Plymouth Argyle, the stadium, the atmosphere. It was fantastic, and I thought, okay, what is more about this, football club? So I spoke to my agent. I said, listen, this opportunity has come up. Would it be possible to try and put my CV in and find out if we get, an interview? And that's what happened. And I went down. I spoke to James Brent. The interview was for 2 hours, and there was
quite a long interview, isn't it, for a first one? But it suggests you got talking and everything.
And I remember reading later on that the interview was a more business orientated interview,
right?
And they set certain criteria over it, and it was very worthwhile because I was able to go into that interview and really put my onus on what I was going to do over the time at the football club and what I had done in the past. And the reason I got the job was that I had worked under a budget at Ross County Football Club that was very low and outweighed the money that I spent. I was able to overachieve on that.
Yeah.
And that's what they took from it. So that's for the reason I got the job. I was able to work to a budget. Plymouth Argyle, as you said, had dropped from the Championship into League One and then quite quickly into League Two. They had just missed out in getting to the playoff final.
Well, I think they only stayed up at one point as well in the Football League, and then had some they'd had some financial issues and just managed to stabilise, I think.
Yeah. So when I was able to, get that opportunity of taking over, they had just missed out in getting to the playoff final. The next season, the first season I was in English football, my first game was against Wimbledon, away from home. Akinfenwa, was the striker at the time. Lyle Taylor playing up front, and we went and won the game 1-0 away from home.
I think it might have been 2-0 actually.
2-0, and I remember. I think Greg Wild scored the goal. He was one of the players that I took in. Wild, there was Sawyer,
Kelvin Mellor first season, I think.
Carey, and these were the players that I was able to take in. I remember my first meeting with James Brent, the day I took over. He said he can take in 5 players. I said, okay. He told me the amount of money that I was able to use, but he didn't tell me that I needed to consider agents' fees, relocation and national insurance into that figure at the time as well. And the figure then becomes a wee bit lower, but that was my first stage in English football.
But did you enjoy, because one of the things I got the impression from afar, Derek, was that under someone like James Brent, although you didn't have a huge amount of money, you'd have a lot of autonomy in the way that other managers at different clubs might not have had.
Yeah, that's something that has been I've been able to have at every club I've been at, and I think that has been important for my managerial career. But you only get that with trust, and the owner, if he trusts you with his money, if he trusts you with your decision making, he will give you autonomy, and I think that's really important. And I had that at Ross County. I had that, when I went to Plymouth Argyle, and in that first season to get to the playoff final was a great achievement, not just for me but the football club at the time, because it was the first time they'd been to Wembley in 20 years. And unfortunately, on the day, we didn't play well enough and we lost that final.
I guess it was a bigger turnover of players, possibly more out of contract the following summer. Was that quite important for you? I think you've always had a high turnover of players, but was that quite important in terms of putting that behind you and starting the following season as well as you did?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I've had a high turnover of players, I wanted players to be driven. I've wanted them to, feel that there's a purpose. Because what I do feel is sometimes if you have players in 2 or 3 year contracts, they sit on them. And I want somebody to either do well for the football club and they get another contract, or they do well and they move on. And it's a two-way thing.
I suppose on the counter argument to that though, Derek, it's Plymouth Argyle, you're asking people to relocate, and some of them have families, and from a security point of view, I imagine there's some people that would want, if they're going to go to Plymouth Argyle, feel like there's the trust and there's that security that they've got.
Yeah.
So there's the other side to it as well.
Definitely, and I think that's the balancing act as well. And there's a risk from both sides. There's a risk from the player, because if he doesn't do well enough, then he hasn't got that contract in the background. If he does well enough, then he's able to move on, possibly for free at times, which has happened in the past. But not only that, there's a risk element for the football club. If he isn't good enough, then he's got 2 years to go. But it's about decision making, and as you say, stability as well. And you have to get your recruitment right. And sometimes that you won't get it right, and the exit clause becomes easier. But I always feel that players can be driven, and we took players that were driven to succeed. And a lot of the time they would have got extended contracts, or they'd moved out of the football club and gone to a higher level.
I wanted to ask you about facing Liverpool in the FA Cup, because you played them twice. There was the first game at Anfield, which you drew 0-0 in the replay. How did it feel to go up against someone like Jurgen Klopp?
Yeah, that was a fantastic experience, because how it happened was we had played Newport in the round before, and we drew with Newport 0-0 at home, and it wasn't a great game of football. We then went to the replay, but in that period of time, we were set to go to a training camp in Marbella. I would always like to take my players to a 3-day camp in that January period, because I split the season up into two. There's a first 23 games and there's a second 23 games. And what happened is we had to cancel the trip, because we ended up having to play a replay. And the replay got put in where we were supposed to go to Marbella. But I didn't tell the players that if we had beaten Newport, then we were still going to go on the trip. What I said to them was, listen, if you beat Newport, then we will go on the trip, but I had already booked the trip for that. But the end of the crux of the matter is, we beat Newport in the replay. Arnie Garita was the striker at the time, and it wasn't an easy tie away from home. And he stole the penalty away from Graham Carey and missed the penalty.
Oh, that's so frustrating, isn't it?
So as a manager, when you're on the sidelines, you're thinking, and we knew we had Liverpool the next round, by the way, before that, because the draw had already been made. This game was live on television, and he misses the penalty. But fortunately for us, we got another penalty. Graham Carey took the penalty this time and scored, and we eventually got to Liverpool in the next round. Liverpool away at Anfield. Anfield had just extended their stadium, so the attendance was higher. I think it was into the thousands at this stage because they had added a tier onto the stadium. We had taken 8,500 with us. We had filled
Wow.
the away end, and the atmosphere was terrific. It was terrific for the players, and we drew 0-0 on the day. We put in a fantastic defensive display. I can't
Yeah.
say any more than that.
Can you remember your team talk before the game about how we're going to stop Liverpool?
The team talk was, we had the likes of, Luke McCormack in goals. We had, Gary Miller, who went off quite early in the game, injured, but we had the likes of Songo at the back with Sonny Bradley, Ben Purrington, who, moved on to Charlton, Rotherham, etc. We had the likes of Carey playing in midfield, Jordan Slew and Jake Jervis played on the outside. So they were the wide midfield players, and they had to get up and down the pitch to deal with the full backs of Liverpool. We had the likes of David Fox in midfield as well, but Oscar Threadkill. Up front, Garita would then sit on their sitting midfield player. I allowed their two centre halves to get on the ball, and we closed the space down. If we were going to get success, it was going to be from our wide players getting forward on a counter-attack.
I see. So you kind of gave the goalkeeper and the two centre halves the ball, and then it was like an 11v8 for the rest of the pitch kind of thing.
And I remember, listening back, Steve McManaman, on the television was criticising us. Argyle have got to come out and play. Well, the thing about it was that we didn't come out and play. We got a replay, and we nearly made £1 million because what happened was we took the game back to Argyle. We lost 1-0 on the night, but we had seating in place because remember at Plymouth Argyle, the terracing at Argyle was taken away from behind the dugouts for many years.
Yes. Yeah.
And we ended up putting in temporary seating behind this for the game, and we nearly 16 to 18,000 at the game. I can't remember the exact amount, but we generated a lot of money for the football club, and that enabled us to help with the training ground because the training ground when I first went there was in a terrible state.
Sure.
And we ended up having a sprinkler system put in place. We ended up really tidying up the training ground to make it more professional, and that money enabled us that. So if we didn't have the replay, we wouldn't have been able to make the money going forward. Yeah,
absolutely. But I suppose I'd love to ask you about Graham Carey and the role, because one thing I've always felt about your teams, your teams are always very industrious, but I always feel like they're built around one or two players who can really make the magic. And for Argyle, that was Graham Carey. It felt like he was the player that you built around.
Yeah, I took Graham Carey from St Mirren to Ross County.
Yeah.
And when I left Ross County, Graham Carey was available, and I think that he's a one-off, as in you need one-off players in your team, somebody that can create something, somebody that can do something out of nothing. And I remember at times sitting in the game and people saying to me, you need to take Graham Carey off. Well, you never take Graham Carey off because he can score a goal out of nothing. And he has a fantastic left foot, great cross of the ball, finds people with passes, and it just enables your team to be unpredictable. And I think that's what you need. You can be predictable in many aspects, but if you've got that unpredictability in your team, then that's what supporters want to come and see. And I think that he was an excellent signing for him. He's an Argyle legend. The fans still talk about him to this day, and the amount of great goals he scored, helped us, throughout the season.
So talk to me about the promotion run in 16-17, Derek. I think you won it against Newport, beating them 6-1, didn't you? How did you handle the drama, I suppose, of the climax of the season?
Yeah, it was an interesting season because we lost our first two games of the season, and then we had put a really good squad together, and there was a lot of tough games in that. But if you look throughout the season, we just clicked, and we put a run of games together. We did really well away from home. We won 13 games away from home that season, which was a club record. We won 7 in the trot as well, which was another club record. But not only that, it was some of the big games that we were able to win along the way. And the points we picked up, games at Crawley, games against Doncaster, You know, the games against Portsmouth were always, you know, very special as well.
Yeah.
But we had a talented group of players, and I spoke about it, you know, earlier on. That was the season we played Liverpool in the FA Cup, and the turning point was probably when we went to Marbella, and we took the players there. We went away for. It was supposed to be 3 days, but because of the flights, we weren't able to do that. We had the January transfer window. I took in the likes of Martin Kennedy, I took in Ryan Taylor, I took in Sarcevic, and what happened was that I played Sokolic as well, 4 or 5 of them.
Oh yeah, Southend, wasn't he?
Yeah, and what I did was that we went away to Cambridge. We were flying out the next morning from Heathrow Airport to Marbella, and I made 4 or 5 changes for that game, and they all included these players, and it was a risk. And my sister talks about this quite a bit. Take risks. Why does she talk about it? Because that's what Sir Alex Ferguson said. Take a risk. And I took a risk. I played 4 of the 5 of these players. We won the game. Bradley, I think, scored in the game. I could be wrong, but from my point of view, was that the next day we flew out on the Sunday to Marbella, and it was a great togetherness. New players all came into the squad. They knew each other. But the funny thing about it was that we were playing Exeter on the Saturday and the Devon Derby. I couldn't get a flight back on the Wednesday. I had to come back on the Thursday. And I only read about this recently. So we flew out on the Sunday, we came back on the Thursday. There was a whole talk about what is Adams doing, taking his team to Marbella when there's a big Devon Derby on the Saturday at home. But it was the best thing that I could ever have done. I took away everyone from the feeling that it was a derby. We came back, we won 3-0 on the Saturday. So when people talk about doing things differently, that's what man management's about. That's what football's about leadership.
Sure.
And we were on the beach. Exeter players had up on their board Argyle or on the beach. It was talked about throughout the week.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do things differently.
Like a reset, almost, yeah.
And that's what I did throughout my career. I did it when I was at Ross County, I did it with an Argyle, and that was a fantastic period, and we just went from strength to strength.
Yeah.
13 away wins in that season, 7 wins in the trot, you know, and some really big games. And the climax was winning 6-1 at home in April against Newport. Was a fantastic occasion.
Yeah, for sure. Just on that kind of team bonding side, I do wonder if there's something about having a camp where players spend lots of time together and they have that chance to get to know each other. Because I suppose on the day-to-day basis, you're focusing on the individual games and you're not necessarily getting to know each other on a deeper level.
Yeah, I mean, that's really important. But not only that, is your backroom staff are really important as well, you know. And in that season, I had Craig Brewster, who was assistant manager, Paul Wooten, who was a legend for Argyle as a player. I had him as first team coach. Matt Neal, who now is at Salford, doing it really well for them. I had Greg Strong as, you know, recruitment. So we had a really tight-knit group of people. Neil Lunn was the kit manager as well. And we all went across there and we all enjoyed it. And something that, you know, the players respect the manager, you know, helping them. They were on the beach, yes, they were on the beach, but we trained, we did double sessions. You know, we go to a place where Liverpool, you know, went with Klopp for many years in Marbella complex. Loads of teams use it nowadays, but it was something that helped us throughout the season, breaking the season into 223 games. And, you know, I just felt that that squad of players, the hunger and desire to do well.
Absolutely. I guess going up to League One, it's interesting. You finished 7th that season, missed out on the final week, but it was interesting. You started that season quite slowly. I think you beat Charlton, but then up until October, very low in the table, and then I think it was around October time, you just completely turned the form. Was it Digaraga coming in, or?
Yeah, we were actually bottom in December, I think.
Oh, right.
And we ended up 7th in the league table, and we just missed out. We didn't we went to Scunthorpe. Scunthorpe game got postponed, and then we had to go back there on a Tuesday night to play the replay. We were all up there, and that was probably we were fighting against Scunthorpe and ourselves to get in there.
Yeah.
And it was more than we could have expected, you know. And
They had Ivan Toney, didn't they?
yeah, they did. They had a really good team. They had spent a lot of money to get there, but we had the nucleus of a good squad. And what it did was that it gave us that impetus to go forward. And it was a really good season because, you know, getting promotion is great, but then to go into that next season and finish 7th was the next stepping stone for us.
Certainly was. Why do you think things didn't quite go to plan the following season?
A wee bit of we probably didn't get the recruitment put all the way right. And what happened was that financially it was difficult for us because when you get promoted, you get an increase in budget. But not only that, the players that are already with you, their wages go up as well. So
Right.
if you get an extra 250, 300,000 on the budget, that might be taken up with the players that are already in contract because they get extra money. Say it's a 15, 20% increase in the wages.
Sure.
So that affects the players that they're able to take in on the opposite side. And we maybe didn't get the recruitment right. We went for players that had come out of Arsenal, out of Man City, feeling that they maybe gave us a wee bit of youthfulness and help. But we didn't. We didn't get it right, and we had a stumbling block. I had, you know, a couple of players that probably could have moved on in that period. I'd stopped them leaving in that January period. There was a bit of discrepancy that, you know, maybe with wages of a couple of players were different, and that's not something that I always, well, I haven't done, but I had to pay one player a greater amount of money just to keep him, and I felt that was really important.
Right.
And what happened is that got out how much money he was getting paid compared to the other players.
You don't really want that, do you?
No, and that caused it because the other players, some of them wanted to be paid the same as them, but they weren't as good as him, in my view. So that caused us a bit of an issue. One player wanted to go to a higher league club in January. I stopped that because I thought he was vital to the club, and eventually that breeds within the squad, and you know, and that's probably why the results didn't go away at some point. But the turning point was we went to Blackpool, we were 2-0 up, drew 2-2, and then we were 2-0 up against Bristol Rovers, or 2-1 up, and we drew 2-2. And they were both pivotal games because the next 5 games we were going into were very, very difficult for us, and we knew that, and that's where the turning point was.
Yeah, it was also that crazy season where the bottom half was mad. I think you were 12th in March that season, and then so that was a bit difficult. I do wonder though, Derek, if you ever look back at the final season at Plymouth Argyle and wonder maybe I could have handled the media or the fan relations aspect a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think it's always the case. I think that when you're a manager and you come out with a quote that is not particularly correct, and what happened, you know, for me in that, you know, last season was that there was a section, a very, very small section of supporters, and I mean it very small.
Yeah.
And I made a quote that was targeted towards them just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it became blown out of proportion.
The whole fan base, yeah.
And that wasn't fair because that wasn't what I said. And you know, the Argyle fans know that. You know, I love them to bits. They were so supportive of me, but that just happened, and I had to deal with it.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's not just about even saying what's true, but as a manager, it's sometimes actually how is this going to sound?
Yes.
And I suppose is that something you're going into your future jobs, sort of thinking, actually, I'm going to be careful about the words that I use and how I describe certain situations.
I think as any journalist, they want their a manager to interview honestly.
Yeah.
But then, when the manager is honest, then they can use that to their benefit as well. And that's where it can be very difficult for a manager to be outspoken. And you've got to keep things to yourself. more or less. You can't always tell it the way that you want to relay the story, and that's something that I've had to learn a few times in my managerial career, that you can't be as outspoken as you are.
As you'd like to be. Yeah, it's a tricky balancing act, isn't it? It's sort of showing fans that it's real and that you feel things, but at the same time navigating relationships. That's always a difficult aspect of it. I wanted to talk about your time at Morecambe, because I think keeping Morecambe up the first season in 1920 and then winning promotion with them on one of the lowest budgets in League Two was a fantastic year. And I actually wanted to go back to when you spoke about learning from Alex Ferguson as a 7-year-old, changing the mentality of the club. Talk to me about changing the mentality of Morecambe and getting rid of the little old Morecambe tag.
Yeah, it was really difficult because I went in there in it was February time, and it was difficult because they were bottom of a league at the time and looked like they were going to go out of the Football League. So I was able to keep them up that season, which was great. The following season, I wanted to change things. If I go back to the season before, Matt Rushton, who was the analyst, was media, said to me, "What can you do with Morecambe? Why are you here? Why have you gone from Plymouth Argyle to Morecambe? What do you see it?" I said, "I think I can get them promoted." And in no respect, he laughed at me. And I thought, and that's fair. I get that. And I said that to Matt because that had never happened before. And why do you think that? I said, well, I think I can organise a team. I think I can recruit the players that are capable of getting promotion. And it was changing the mentality of the football club to think bigger and better than being little old Morecambe.
But can I just add to that, because I think that's a really important point. I remember you definitely had an impact in your first couple of months there, because I went to Northampton in January that season, and I spoke to an elderly lady outside the ground, and she said, Derek Adams will take us to League One. And at the time I sort of looked at her a bit strangely, because it's Morecambe, one of the lowest budgets in the league, always been struggling for the last few years at that level, and she was right. So, but it showed, and that was within 2 months, I think, of your appointment. So it shows very quickly you're able to create a sense of belief that yes, we might be limited what we can do financially, but we've got some ambition here.
Yeah, I think that management, leadership, it's about leading your people. It's about believing in them. But me believing in them, but them believing in you as well.
Yeah.
And it's how you go about your daily workings. And if you continue to be successful and show people the way, and then they believe in you, they're going to come with you. And that's what that season was all about. I remember watching a reserve game. Carlos Mendes Gomez was playing in the reserves, and I had just joined the club, and I phoned John McMahon. I said, "Who's this player?" John McMahon was my assistant, and an excellent, assistant. And I said, "John, why is he not playing in the first team?" He said, "He's just been in and out." I said, "He's playing on Saturday." And John said, "You sure?" I said, "I am positive he's playing, because he can do something different. He's a different type of player to what we've got. He can do something out of nothing." And I had to make decisions, big decisions. Barry Roach was the goalkeeper there for many years. I took him out of the team and made him goalkeeping coach. Another, firm favourite in Kevin Ellison, that I took in Carlos Gomez to replace Kevin Ellison. I thought that Kevin was coming to the end of his career, and made that decision, and not easy. And I know the consequences in that at the time.
Yeah.
But Carlos was a player that did really well for us. The season we got promoted, he was the top goal scorer on 15 goals. He scored more goals than Cole Stockton in that season.
Yeah.
And he was the striker. So, I always feel that I was correct in making that decision, but it's not easy making that decision at the time.
Yeah, it's always difficult, isn't it? And also, I suppose I wanted to talk about changing the culture, because I think Jim Bentley did really well at Morecambe in terms of creating that sort of unity, that kind of team bonding on a day-to-day basis. I think you maybe brought something different to the club, that went a different direction maybe, in terms of maybe keeping a bit more of a distance and In terms of that standards thing, you were very strong on that.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Of course, yeah.
And Jim had his style, and it was very, very successful.
Yeah.
And he was a person that would be very close to the players. He was a person that was close to the supporters as well. Before games, after games. I was still that person, but I wasn't as close to them as Jim was.
Yeah.
I knew how I went about my business as a manager, and everyone's got a different way of doing things. And my training regime was different from other managers. Other managers are different. You've got your own way. There's not a right way and there's not a wrong way. It's just the way that you see fit. And I had to make a lot of tough decisions in that time and upset a lot of people along the way. But I felt it was the best way for the football club. And that's what I always do. I said, what is the best way to be successful? What's the best way to take this football club forward? And, I remember taking in Tumani Diadagara. I remember taking in Jan Songo. I remember training and people looking at, what are you taking this guy in for? But I knew what the quality they had. And I was upsetting other people in the camp because I was taking them out of the team and replacing them. And I had to be sure, and that's what happened. We took in these very good players, and they complemented the other players that were already at the club. Stockton was a great striker.
Yeah.
And some other managers want Cole to run about. Cole's not a run about. He's a striker that will play in between the penalty area, take other people into the game. And we had John O'Sullivan playing on the right hand side. And that was important in that team. I had 2 left backs, 2 right backs, and the Coonies, the Henrys, the Gibsons were really important for us. Lavelle was a tremendous captain.
Oh, yeah.
I had 4 goalkeepers in that season as well, and Lethrin and Halstead and Jake Turner.
Mafumbi.
Yeah, so I think that really important that you understand the squad, and we just had a great togetherness. Like Ben Pringle didn't play a lot, but was very good for us when he did play. But from my point of view, it's just understanding how you get the best players into your team on the budget.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big strengths that stood out to me with you, Derek. Getting everything out of a squad and leading them to promotion in 2021. What's the key to individual game plans and spotting strengths of opposition, how to negate them, and weaknesses and how to exploit them? What's your process for that?
Yeah, the process is that after the game on a Saturday, I will quite quickly look at the opposition for the next game, and what I'll do is that I'll watch the opposition and look at what's their strengths and weaknesses. What can I exploit? What can I? Where is the strengths? How can I negate what they're going to do in the game? But not only that, how can I get the better of the opposition? And that's what I look to a lot. And that's why sometimes I'll change formations. I'll not say that we're going to play exactly this way all the time, because then opposition are able to get the better of you.
Yeah.
So I look at, can I change Gomez from one side to the other because he's going to exploit the right back? It was the same with Carey. I wouldn't always play Carey in the same position because I thought, he can exploit this player. How can I get the best out of my players playing against the opposition? So that's what I do. I look at the opposition and then go into training and work on how we're going to exploit the opposition, but look at how we're going to deal with the opposition as well, and make sure that we've got different plans for a game. There's an A, B, C plan to that game, and the players understand that. And there might be times where I'll say to my captain, come over to me at the touchline, we're going to change formation, and he's the one on the pitch that goes and tells them, right, we're going to this next formation. Right,
so he's the reference point.
Yes.
Talk to me about, after you'd won promotion at Wembley with Morecambe, which was a fantastic moment, you took the Bradford City job. A little bit similar themes to the final season at Plymouth Argyle, where at a bigger club it can be more difficult and the media side and the fan relations side possibly becomes that bit more important?
Yeah, I think that when we went into Bradford City, it was a difficult moment because they were wanting to get out of League Two into League One. I had drawn too many games. We had drawn 13 games at that time, and we were sitting 11th in the table, and they wanted to be in the playoffs at that moment in time. I think it was around about March time, maybe. And I enjoyed the squad we had. I thought we had a very good squad. You know, the front three was in Gall, Cook, and Gilead on their day, with Callum Cook in behind. We had Elliot Watt in midfield, Jan Songo, and I thought that was, you know, a really strong outfit. We didn't score enough goals. Alex Gilead had so many really good opportunities and just failed to score at the time. Andy Cook was, you know, a fantastic, you know, striker for him. He's one of the best finishers I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
And Gall could be a top player on his day, but hasn't shown it enough, you know, over his career. And the end of, we just didn't win enough games. You know, we drew too many matches, and we maybe didn't have the X factor in the squad at that moment in time, and that was the biggest problem. I took in Jamie Walker on loan, and I thought that would change things. I think it probably would have, to, you know, to try and get us in the playoff positions. I still think to this day we would have finished in the playoffs that season.
Yeah, I suppose I'm wondering. I think possibly on the pitch, I don't think you're a million miles away, because there were a lot of draws, and I was there for the Forest Green game where I thought you played very well around January time. But again, I just wonder, when it comes to the media handling side, you know, it's one of those quotes that, if you take it in isolation, it's actually quite reasonable. But if you're thinking, how is this going to sound? You know, it's very easy for possibly a bigger fan base for things to get sort of blown up, and that can be a challenge if you want to work at those higher levels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the case. And, I think that you've got to be understand what the fan base want and how you respond to them, and that's all about learning over your career as a manager. And I think that from my point of view, you're always, you know, learning from the mistakes that you make. And you know, I've done that, you know, over the career. What have you done well, and what have you done not so well? And you know, I think that a number of times when I was at Bradford City, I should have said sorry for not winning a game, or I should have said sorry for. But I was always trying to protect my players, and that was the big thing in it all.
Yeah, absolutely. But going back to Morecambe, you did a fantastic achievement keeping them up. And I think by the third stint, it was obviously going to be very difficult because of the financial situation, what it was. But I think keeping them up in 21-22 was a fantastic achievement.
Yeah, I mean, with 13 games to go, I went back in, and we had 7 of the top 11 teams to play in that period of time, and it was really difficult. But eventually we got there. You know, we had some really good victories to keep us. My first game back was against Ipswich Town, where we drew. We were able to beat likes of Oxford United, who were pushing to get into that playoff positions. We went to Charlton. Was fantastic to go there twice and win convincingly. So that, to keep them in that division that season, was really, really good. And when I left the next season, you know, we were 7th in the league, and I went back to Ross County. Then I came back again to Morecambe, and I was told that the club was going to get sold in 14 days at the start of the season. We were under a transfer embargo, and I had to sign 15 players in one day. I know that these signings had been coming in, but I'd only joined in on the 3rd of June. Pre-season training started on the 1st of July. So in that period of time, it was really, really difficult to do that. And, you know, we weren't able to keep them in the division. And we should have, because I thought we had enough players to do that at that moment in time. And eventually, we ran out of time. The new owners came in to Morecambe over the summer, and, you know, they decided to make a change. And it wasn't done properly. You know, I think that you know, the new manager was already ready to come in, and I think it was in June. He'd done his press inside the stadium. I didn't go until I was in August, so I don't think that was the proper way to do things. But my main focus, that's what I'd learned, you know, from the press, but I didn't know that at the time.
Right.
And, you know, from I was trying to keep the players going, keep the football club going, because it looked like it was going to go out of existence at one point.
Yeah, which was a very scary situation. We're a little bit pressed for time now, so I just got a few more questions, Derek. In terms of for your next job, what do you think if you're starting from a start of a summer recruitment process, what would be the ideal recruitment process for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been able to go into a club that has been structurally correct from the point of view. I've never been able to walk into a football club where one, there's money, well, one, there's a budget, where there's a system in place, there's a director of football, etc. I've always had to go in and build clubs up, which is fine, but it would be nice to go into a football club where there's a process already in place, and then I'm able to then put my stamp on things going forward. So that's what I hope for. There's a head of recruitment, there's a director of football to take the pressure off of me going forward. But you never know where you're going to end up. People always say they're waiting for the right opportunity. There's never the right opportunity. There's 92 football league clubs in England, and how many clubs manager jobs are you going to get? Well, there's less than 20, there's less than 15, of them.
Yeah, I do wonder. I think experienced managers, certainly in season, are going to become very much in demand. I mean, I still feel, if I look at the last 10 years of the Football League, if I look at underdog managers that have really achieved against the odds, I would say John Coleman, I would say Gareth Ainsworth, and I think I would put yourself in that bracket. So surely you would feel like I can be a top end League Two manager in the right circumstances, and I think you can do it in League One.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think I should have managed in the Championship before now, and that's partly because of my fault in a way, because I've been very loyal to football clubs over time. I haven't taken moves when I should have. I could have left Morecambe in December to go to another club, but I didn't. I stayed loyal. I stayed loyal to Plymouth Argyle because they were loyal to me. The same when I was at Ross County. I could have gone to a higher league Premier Division club, but choices that I've made over times haven't always benefited me. But I do have to look at things differently over time.
Absolutely. Well, Derek, we wish you the very best of luck, and thank you for talking to us.
No, thank you.
Cheers.